So next week, Monday, the 25th of May, is Africa Day, a commemoration of the foundation of the Organization of African Unity on the 25th of May 1963. So while it's a time to galvanize Africans to work towards the stability and economic prosperity of the continent, it's challenging times in the era of COVID-19. The impact, of course, of the global pandemic will have far-reaching implications for the continent's growth. Sophie Mokoena, SABC Foreign Editor, joins me now. Sophie, very good evening to you. Thanks indeed for your time. Well, this Africa Day certainly comes at a time of COVID-19. What impact will this have on normal celebrations?
Well, of course, we are not going to see the normal fanfare that we are accustomed to during this time where we are commemorating or celebrating Africa Day. We know that many events will be virtual. We know that the African Union will continue with the celebrations. The President of South Africa, but also the Chair of the African Union, that is President Cyril Ramaphosa, will lead the celebrations, but it will be a virtual event where leaders will send their messages and perhaps singing of the African Union anthem, but also having some of the high-profile newsmakers on the continent sending their message. And I think the message is going to center around COVID-19. And we know that this COVID-19 has affected many people, but also events that were supposed to happen on the continent that are aimed at building the continent economically and politically. I mean, you look at the African Continental Free Trade area that was supposed to be implemented in June. An event in Accra, Ghana was supposed to happen in May. We know that a South African is currently a secretary for the Continental African Free Trade Area. And now that event is put on hold. We know that we're supposed to be talking about silencing of the guns, and there was supposed to be a big conference in South Africa where member countries were going to iron out, a program of action to ensure that come end of 2020, we have indeed silenced the gun. And unfortunately, those events are going to be affected. And we'll see.
So what is likely to also take a center stage is how Africa, as a continent will maneuver through this virus, as it will most definitely put the brakes on development, planned development.
Thanks to the technology, the work continues. Like I indicated, most of the events will be virtual. I mean, I'm talking here, you know that annually we have what we call Thabo Mbeki annual lecture, but it has been deferred, and but that doesn't mean that nothing is going to happen. Thabo Mbeki Foundation has partnered with the South African Council of Churches. There's going to be a conference on Monday. We know that Professor Bani Pichiani will lead the discussions. On Tuesday, we'll have Reverend Chikane looking back, and they will be discussing, looking back at the outcomes of the 1945 Manchester Conference, where many Africans attended, and that's where people like the late President of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, and Jomo Kenyatta were propelled to ensure that they launched what we know as the Organization of African Unity. In 2000, it was turned into the African Union, and it was launched in Durban in South Africa. The president then, Thabo Mbeki, becoming the first chairperson of the AU, and now again we have our own president who is currently the chair of the AU.
And just finally, how are we as a broadcaster going to treat this particular Africa Day given these developments, Ms. Sophie?
Thanks to technology, we'll continue to do that. Starting from tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, we'll have lots of stories around the innovation on the continent, looking at indigenous knowledge and perhaps trade and investment, speaking to different role players, art, education, and of course on Monday, where we will bring you that virtual activity of the African Union and also the collaboration, Thabo Mbeki Foundation and the Council of Churches. And we'll also bring you perhaps next week, Saturday, a finale, where we'll have the Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, in partnership with the University of Johannesburg having an activity, and here the focus will be technology. We know that the Vice Chancellor of that university is very passionate on issues that revolves around fourth industrial revolution. So therefore, it's business as usual, and we will ensure that we continue to celebrate or commemorate or highlight Africa Day. It is Africa. We are Africans. We cannot forget.
Thank you very much indeed, SABC Foreign Editor Sophie Mokoena. Looking, of course, to Africa Day, which is next week, Monday, May the 25th. And you saw there on our screen just a few moments ago, of course, there's also a benefit concert which will take place virtual, of course. You have, some of South Africa's finest, your Shoma Jawsies, your AKAs, you also are Tiwa Savage from the continent. So something certainly to look forward to as we discuss some of the pressing issues that the continent continues to face.